all go pear-shaped, but we'll stick at it. So yes, Darren said a couple of months ago, or 2 or 3 months ago, I came down and I presented to the guys and gals at Plymouth, and very interesting, great exchange of information. But I thought what I'd do is, for the new faces, just to give you some idea of a little bit of background about why I come down there and what it is my little team does. So I'm not a stranger to Plymouth. I was Plymouth born and bred. As you can see from here, I went to Sutton High before it was before it was turned into flats many years ago. I am the proud owner of a Gus Honeybum Westward TV badge, which I still have, and still occasionally, when I'm completely mad, wear with pride. And I also spent many happy years playing principal tenor horn with what was then Plymouth Silver Band. So obviously born, bred, and brought up in Plymouth, and still come down, still very proud of being Plymouthian. The team my little team isn't a stranger down there too. Even in the situation with COVID, we still try to come down at least once a month to do a lot of our projects, some of which I'll show you in a second. And obviously the virtual Mayflower project, which has been a serious labour of love, spanning a story of some 6 years, which I'm going to condense into a couple tens of minutes tonight. We've been down doing an awful lot of background research to try and get some accuracy. So what I will say tonight is what you see isn't necessarily accurate. I don't have a TARDIS. I can't go back in time. Nobody can go back in time. But we've done our damnedest for this labour of love. So the team is involved in what we call virtual, augmented, or mixed reality, basically different forms of simulation for defence. We work very closely with various authorities around the West Country. So, for example, some of our submarine work, which you'll see a little bit later with Devonport Naval Base, where my dear old dad worked all his life in North Yard. A lot of work with bomb disposal robots, and we've also been working, for example, with companies like BAE Systems and others in developing virtual reality models of future concepts, including the Tempest fighter. And we've done a lot of work with the guys at MSubs out in Estover with regards to visualizing the Mayflower autonomous ship, which, as you know, was officially dunked into the water or launched last month. A lot of work with healthcare. A lot of our work in healthcare is about taking natural scenes of virtual nature into the hospital. And the area that we focused on doing this, 2 areas we focused on doing this. One was Wembury Bay. And Wembury Bay will crop up an awful lot in these presentations. We've been looking into using that at Tor Bay Hospital for rehabilitation, and also at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital up in Birmingham, close to where I live, to help people recover in intensive care. Virtual heritage is my first love. I love the idea of using this technology for things like this, things like outreach, things like STEM, public engagement, to try and make the invisible visible. And there's an awful lot around Plymouth and around Dartmoor and in the seas around Plymouth that are actually still invisible and unknown to many. So we do a lot of work, again, flying drones legally, I should point out, over Dartmoor, not pestering the sheep, but with the approval of Dartmoor National Park. We've done various projects in the past, like recreating the old Burrator sheep store, Great Western Railway halt up on Dartmoor. One of the projects that's still going, and we were down a couple of weeks ago at Burrator Reservoir, which you can see here, is we've been looking at a sonar survey at the reservoir, and we've been looking at the remains. We're using one of our little submersibles, the remains of World War II torpedo nets that still exist across the bottom of the reservoir that were put in there to stop the Heinkels from coming in and torpedoing the dam back in the Second World War. So again, it's very few people know that stuff's down there, but using virtual reality combined with sonar, we can bring it alive. So that's what we do. I'd say, I covered a few of the projects when I spoke to the Plimpton guys and gals a couple of months ago. There's no way we can cover all of these, and tonight I'm just focusing on the Mayflower and how we've tried to bring that back to life and bring it back in a digital form that we could show, but that wasn't going to be compromised by the COVID-19 situation. So I'm going to try and whistle through the story, and hopefully you'll understand why we've done what we've done, how we've done it. So this, believe it or not, all started 7 years ago in Portsmouth. I shouldn't say Portsmouth, being a Plymouth lad, but there you are. The Nautical or Archaeological Society conference was held in Portsmouth, and they came to know of us because of a project, again, we did in Wembury Bay, where we used augmented reality to show what the 1909 proposals for the UK's largest commercial dock might have looked like. Now, fortunately, for a variety of financial and investment reasons, the project was chucked out of the House of Lords in 1909. But we wanted to use virtual reality and augmented reality to show people that area would have been decimated had that gone ahead. And during that conference, we showed them a few other projects. For example, the Amethyst. It was one of my ambitions always to try and, if you like, having seen the rather pathetic little memorial banner or little bollard next to the steakhouse or the China house down in the Barbican saying Amethyst was scrapped here, I always felt like I'd love to see what the Amethyst looked like when it was jutting out into Sutton Harbour. So this was a student project of ours. The Maria, again, working with the guys at Promare and some of them based at MSubs, the ability to be able to show what the final moments of John Day, the entrepreneur who went down in the Maria would look like when he dived the Maria in 1774 in Firestone Bay, and sadly never came back up again. So again, you know, there are those who think that the remains of some of the remains may still be down there. I'm a little bit dubious, but using virtual reality, we can give people the experience of being in that very tight compartment for this last few minutes. Another project I mentioned at Plymouth, again, one of my favorites, the Glaucus, which is a £1,000 habitat that was built by Colin Irwin. You can see here his younger form. He's now a professor at Liverpool, who built this thing called the Glaucus with lots of railway sleepers, dunked it off the breakwater, and spent a week in it to prove that you could live underwater at a fraction of the price that Jacques Cousteau and the Sea Lab guys over in the States were doing. Still down there, as you can see from this picture, probably in a worse condition now than when these photographs were taken back in the 50th anniversary, 2015. But again, just being able to show people what it was like inside and the experiments that he carried out. And then finally, SubSafe. This was again a long period of work. This was in trying to develop a three-dimensional model of a nuclear submarine so that newcomers, new naval ratings, could learn how to evacuate submarines in times of safety critical situations and find out where all the safety kit was on board. And we spent 18 months experimenting with the ratings down at HMS Drake in Devonport, and as a result of that, this project has since stimulated the Navy, both our Navy, the Canadian Navy, and the Australian Navy, to adopt this technique to train their submarines of the future. So after the Archaeological Society conference, we were approached to consider how we might build much older vessels. And the Shipwreck Museum at Hastings came to us and said, are you interested in getting involved? We haven't got any money, which is a very common statement we come across. No one's ever going to make their millions doing virtual reality and heritage. I certainly haven't. So all these projects are very much a labour of love. But they talked to us about this ship called the Anne, which was launched back in 1678, third-rate ship of the line, built for Charles II's new navy, and it was in the Battle of Beachy Head, and to prevent the French from getting hold of it, it was deliberately scuttled on the beach at Pett Level, just east of Hastings, and set alight. And there it lay until 2013 and 2014, one of the rare, really nasty storms that hits the south coast decided to expose it. So you can see there the keel, roughly the keel area. So there's about another maybe 10 feet underneath the sands, but this is obviously the lower part of the ship. And it's a real shame because although you can get some ideas of the actual length of the ship, you couldn't really get an idea of how big the ship was. So we were invited down by the Shipwreck Museum to see what we could do. We took one of our drones down and we did a flyover just to get some accurate scans of the top of the vessel. And whilst we were doing that, this photograph down on the right got me thinking, wouldn't it be a good idea if, as we did at Wembury, could we not try and see the ship in its final resting place, but through the eyes of the drone? In other words, fly the drone over the top of this wreck and then look down through the masts and see the ship on the actual sands at Pett Level. So we got involved with a couple of, I had a couple of interns at the time, a couple of young students from France, Cecile and Emilian, two absolutely really competent 3D modelers. And together we put together a three-dimensional model, as you can see here, just a brief snapshot of how we put this model together. So it literally every plank, every piece of rigging, every cannon, every little detail, every little sculpture for the actual the sculptures of and the emblems on the side and the front of the ship, all the rigging. And we built this ship, the Anne, and put it into a virtual reality dock, very simple dock, which you'll see again with the Mayflower. And then what we did was we took it around the country and enabled people using virtual reality headsets and a typical games controller, such as an Xbox, to be able to walk around the Anne and to experience it in real time, to be able to explore it. And we took that model back to the pet level, and you can see one of my colleagues, Chris, flying his drone over the wreck whilst we still had access to it. And it was very brief, but we were able to do that idea of looking down on the 3D wreck as it was on the sands itself. So you can just about make out the real sands as we're looking down on the ship itself. And there are the two students helping us to just show how big the ship was in the final moments before it was set alight. So that was a very powerful demonstration, and we were able to take that demonstration on numerous public engagement events. The beach club at pet level, we had people as old as 90. We had school kids as young as 7, all exploring the Anne and some of our other projects and getting very excited. This was something on their doorstep. This was something they identified with. And because of that, nobody showed any issues with putting the headsets on and interacting with technology. All the phobias that you read about, particularly in senior citizens about using this technology, were not existent, because what they were seeing was something that was a few hundred yards away from where they lived. So a very, very powerful way of getting people involved, not just in history, but getting used to the technology as well. And again, we showed it all over the place. The shipwrecks of the shipwreck museum in Hastings. We even, I don't know whether this is something to be proud of or not, but we even were visited by Amber Rudd, literally on the day that she was made Home Secretary. It's been shown in Catalonia. It's been shown all over the place. So again, very powerful way of conveying information about something that no longer exists. Here you can see this guy, a veteran from the Battle of the Atlantic. Also, I mean, he was amazing. He came right to the front of the queue, pushed his way to the front of the queue, put on the headset, and was walking around the ship like an pro. It was really impressive to see. And during that time, we were also presenting to school kids. Now we got this opportunity to go to Dartmouth, which of course is one of the places where the Mayflower paid a visit before it sailed off into the Atlantic and came back to Plymouth. So whilst we were there, we presented to the academy, we got the school children involved, went down extremely well, and we were also invited to present to the Mayflower Trail Town, the Mayflower towns, who were coming together for one of their numerous meetings that they held, but this time in Dartmouth. And we presented the work on the Anne, and were invited to consider doing exactly the same thing for the Mayflower. At that time, funding was talked about. We've never seen a penny, but that's a completely different issue. You know, I say we have been working in this area for some time, and yeah, the money side of things tends to get forgotten very, very easily. So that got us onto the Mayflower. All this idea of making virtual reality, make the invisible visible, and engage kids, engage older people, showing them that it's not all about games, it's all about creativity, it's about art, it's about science. It's bringing all of these things together. So with all the interest from Dartmouth, from Plymouth, from Southampton, Harwich, Rochester, Scrooby, I mean, all the places that were involved in the journey of the Pilgrims down to their final departure, our aspirations were huge, and we could have done this. We wanted to involve children. We wanted to have classes where we could teach children 3D so that they could build a 3D barrel or a 3D hay bale and put it on the 3D Mayflower, so they could tell their mum and dad, that was my bit. That was the aspiration. We wanted to involve, there's lots of people designing the Pilgrims clothing for us. We wanted to be able to show it on a variety of pieces of equipment, not just headsets, but on mobile phones, on tablets, on screens, on projectors. And so it went on. And we also had aspirations to link up with the United States, because obviously the relationship with the United States and Mayflower is very, very close. So again, not go through this in any detail to save time. It was going to be more than just another tech demo. Tech demos are 2 a penny these days, but it had to be a tech demo for a reason and for a specific group of interested people. We wanted it to have a strong focus on education and STEM. Again, showing kids it's not necessarily all about science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's about art. It's about creativity. It's about digital skills that those that aren't going to be scientists could quite easily get involved in as well. But for me, the big thing was it needed to be a legacy. It had to be a legacy for heritage and education well beyond. We had to leave something for beyond 2020, something that was going to not necessarily rot, like the numerous scale models of the Mayflower that you see around the country and elsewhere, and you know, some of which are, I believe there's still one in North Devon that they're proposing to burn a full scale model that they're going to set alight for some inexplicable reason. But we wanted something that was digital, that could be built upon. This is an aspiration of ours going forward, and leave something that was going to be used more than just September, the Mayflower week in September. The international aspirations, again, were a little bit ambitious, I suppose, because again, without funding, to be able to do what I wanted, which was for children in Plymouth to be able to go on a virtual voyage with children from, let's say, Provincetown or Plymouth, Massachusetts, and then tell their story to each other. That was the aspiration. It never happened. What did happen, however, was quite influential. And I got an invitation to go over to Plymouth, Massachusetts back in 2016. And I was extremely well looked after. And the assets and the resources that these guys gave us to build the Mayflower project were just incredible. It was just, I can't thank them enough. So I went over to, they got me on board Mayflower 2. That's before, as you know, she was recently renovated in Mystic Seaport on the East Coast, and sailed back into Plymouth very recently, looking very, very splendid in her new paintwork and renewed cabins and compartments. I took the opportunity. I took over a little 360 camera. You can see the 360 view. So we took it in different compartments. We took it up to the crow's nest. I collected as much information as I could in order to help make whatever we were going to do as accurate as we could, given the information available. And that included filming and videoing some of the actors and actresses that they have on board, who fulfill the role of showing what it was like to live on board, and some of the activities of the 30 crew that made the transatlantic journey. I was also lucky enough to be taken to Plymouth Plantation. And Plymouth Plantation is again a reproduction, a recreation of the colony that was set up there, all these little huts. Contents in some of these huts, such as these 2 swivel cannons, which allegedly were used on the Mayflower for close-range combat. Things like spinning wheels, cradles, and what have you, all the kind of things that they brought over. I had to capture those as well, because those, if we'd had time, and I'm still hoping we'll be able to do the interior of the ship at some stage, we would have had to include those as well. Their wardrobe is incredible, absolutely incredible. They have spent so much time generating, sewing, and getting all kinds of materials to make the clothing of the pilgrims when they landed, as the plantation plantation developed. And they were also resurrecting the shallop, which is, I'm sure some of you know, in the original Mayflower was taken over in at least 4 pieces and had to be assembled when they finally anchored off Provincetown and took the initial reconnaissance team, for want of a better description, onto Cape Cod to find out what was what. The other assets they gave us, again, incredible. This video here is actually of a laser scan of the Mayflower 2 after she had just been delivered to Mystic Seaport and the renovation on board had started. Now, this was great for us because using the laser data, we could get accurate dimensions between the beams, between the compartments. We could measure down below. We could, as you see here, the things like the windlass and things like the deck, the actual ladders and what have you. So that was fantastic to be able to take those measurements and compare it with these. They also gave us the full set of plans that were drawn up by the archaeologist or the architect William Baker at Massachusetts Institute of Technology back in 1951. So as I say, their contribution was absolutely brilliant. And there's the American TV channel C-SPAN 3, who did an interview with me on the project last week, will also be showing Plymouth Plantation and the Mayflower in the program that I think is going to be coming out sometime in November to coincide with the historic arrival date of the Mayflower. So with that, we were able to, this is a video, we were able to put together an initial, very simple 3D model of the Mayflower. We found an even simpler model of the Speedwell online, and we were able to put this into virtual reality, again, just to show people the art of the possible, take this around, and also use it to try and secure sponsorship. And say, look, just imagine if we could have this, where you could go into compartments. Just imagine if we could have this where you've got virtual passengers and virtual crew who you could interact with, and just really to fire up the imagination and try and inspire people. As it happens, that didn't happen, but we were able to interact with lots of members of the public and school kids, and we showed this at many schools. I've got a list of schools that we've presented to in Plymouth, the length of your arm, and you know, don't get me wrong, it's been an absolute delight seeing the kids interact with this project. We also thought we'd have a try. We didn't concentrate on this too much, but what we did do was actually reasonably successful. So like we did with the augmented reality model of the Anne, we decided to see if we could get a reasonably credible 3D model of the Mayflower in situ in both Sutton Harbour and in Bayard's Cove in Dartmouth. So this is where we had, in 2017, we had some static trials where the ship was moored just outside Sutton Harbour, with the flags flailing and what have you. And we did something very similar at Bayard's Cove. We wanted to try and look at, you know, what is it we have to do to the reflections and the shadowing on the water to make it look accurate. Wasn't particularly successful, but it wasn't a complete washout. And then in 2017, with a moving vessel, we wanted to test some of the effects. We wanted to look into the bow wave, we wanted to look into the sail, we wanted to look into the flag. So we took it up onto the Hoe. You can see the Royal Corinthian Yacht Club there. And okay, this isn't particularly accurate, sailing due south from Tyneside, but it gives you an idea. This is the ship sailing rather energetically, I have to say, past Drake's Island. It does almost look as this thing has got a nuclear propulsion system. So we were obviously a little bit too carried away with the stern wake, but nevertheless, it did give us some confidence that were we able to take the project further, we could then. My ambition was to actually have this ready for September the 16th, so people could stand on the Hoe with augmented reality glasses and see the Mayflower set sail, and then do the same thing in Provincetown to see the Mayflower arriving in Cape Cod. Sadly, I did say resources-wise, we never got there. So that's the ship. Passengers and crew. Again, the ambition was to do all 102 passengers and all 30 crew. That was far too ambitious, in bearing in mind that the team that worked on this were doing it voluntarily. But nevertheless, it was quite interesting. We did start with some very simple virtual humans. We had some issues with their movements. We would put them on board and they could move them around. But the thing is, with avatars or virtual humans, getting the movement accurate is more important to believability than getting their clothes and their faces accurate. So again, we had some experiments on board the virtual Mayflower. You can see them here. The kids loved this because I remember one school in Plymouth, we took this along on Red Nose Day, and we actually put red noses on the pilgrims as well as on the children themselves. That was fun. And the other thing we did, which is a little bit naughty, but the kids loved it, is that every time they looked up, because all of our demonstrations are the seagull noises are always present, and that's probably something to do with the fact that I lived in Plymouth, where the seagulls were omnipresent. But you're able to look up into the seagulls, and then the seagulls would poop on your virtual reality headset. And whilst it was a little bit a tad gimmicky, the kids remembered it, but they remembered the other things that we told them about the Mayflower when they remembered the virtual poop on the virtual reality headset. So there's a little bit of a gimmick, but it seemed to work. So the movements weren't right. So the question then came, how are we going to generate accurate virtual reality humans with relatively accurate movement? Step one was to try a bit of technology. So we were very lucky to get in contact with the Jubilee Sailing Ships Trust. Now, these guys, as you probably are aware, have these fantastic tall ships. They have these fantastic assets that they take sort of disabled and handicapped people out to sea and give them the experiences of sailing on a ship. I mean, this ship, when we went on board in Canary Wharf, was unbelievable. In the way they've kitted this out for disabled users or less abled users is absolutely inspirational. And we managed to bribe this young lady, Beth Goss. She is the ship's bosun, or she was the ship's bosun. Now, Beth, we dressed her up in all kinds of technology. So she's got a 360 camera, same one that I took to Massachusetts. She's got a 360 camera there, and she's wearing this rather strange suit called the perception neuron, would you believe? And what that does is it records the movements of your limbs without you having to get yourself into a lycra gear or be recorded by optical systems in a typical special effects studio. So Beth, in the most horrendous weather conditions at Canary Wharf, actually went up the mast. And you see, this is bending because this is the actual 360-degree camera. So when you see this in a 360 view, you can look up, down, left, and right. Beth went from the side of the ship right up to the upper mast to get up there. You can see it right at the top. And to say the wind and the rain was horrendous, and bless her, she actually did it for us. And she generated some useful information. So the idea is, could we take those 3D models of the pilgrims and the crew, and could we use the information that we captured from Beth unfurling the sails and climbing the rigging, and could we use that to animate them? Problems that because this was done in such atrocious conditions, that the noise that the system captured was far too great. So it looked as if people were going halfway up the virtual rigging and then doing a little jig at the top, as if they were defying gravity. So that was a bit of a failure. Very exciting test of technology and a great project for one of my students. So what we did eventually was we teamed up with a college in Leamington Spa. Leamington Spa is obviously east of Birmingham, and very well known for games. Very well known for gaming technologies. A lot of games companies over there. The college specialises in games and games programming, animation, and art. Let's say we teamed up with a fantastic guy there called Mike Acosta, who very kindly, again, without any request of funding, said he would be quite happy to work on generating not a complete complement of passengers and crew, but a variety of three-dimensional humans that we could have walking around on the ship itself. So again, using the information I brought back from Plymouth, Massachusetts, he was able to put together a range, and you'll see these again a little bit later on, including, for example, the guy who was washing the deck and chucking the water overboard. And again, not going into too much detail, but these are the tools that he used. And I mean, if anyone's interested in getting a PDF of this presentation, these are the tools that enabled him to do all the sculpting, all the animation, all the texturing, the fine texturing to get the dynamics or the dynamics and the look and feel of the virtual clothes. Absolutely fantastic guy. And I also asked him if he would consider working with me to try and do a 3D model of Edward Winslow. Now, say Plymouth born and bred, and I now live in Droitwich. And Droitwich launched their Mayflower 400 activities last year. I was fortunate enough to work with the mayor and actually open Droitwich Spa's official Mayflower celebrations, commemorations. And the idea was, well, it would be wrong if we were doing this virtual Mayflower and it was all Plymouth based. Not that particularly worries me, but let's try and do something with Edward Winslow. Now, there's only one painting of Edward Winslow that exists. It exists, I believe the actual top copy, if you like, is based in Plymouth Plantation itself, in the museum. The other copy is in the council chambers of Droitwich Spa, which is their, this is Richard's house, which is where their council resides, and also it's the Salt and the Mayflower Museum. So how do we represent a younger virtual Winslow? Very difficult. I knew there was this guy, actor, Barry Sloane, who played Edward Winslow in Saints and Strangers, which was a TV film, I believe. So we were doing some research, and I came across this picture of Major Edward F. Winslow, who was, as you can see, sixth generation of Kenselm Winslow, Edward's brother, who was also born in Droitwich. So I thought, fair enough, we'll go for something like that. So we did, and we gave him a really cool bouffant hairstyle. Not sure that's very accurate, but hell, we did it anyway. And we put together, with Mike's effort, with Mike's help, a virtual reality avatar, slightly more detailed avatar of Edward Winslow. I've yet to show this live in Droitwich, but I'm sure it will attract some criticism. But in the absence of anything else, it'll stimulate discussion, if nothing else. Right, so we have the ship, we have some of the passengers and crew. What else was there to do? Well, about 18 months ago, because, and I don't mean to harp on about this, but because of the lack of funding, because of the lack of support we were getting, I was just about to give up, because it's very, very frustrating. And then I was talking to some people in Plymouth, and suddenly occurred to me, we could do so much more. After all, the Mayflower was kind of here today and gone tomorrow. But the Barbican, Sutton Pool, Sutton Harbour, and the way that whole conurbation existed and grew up into Plymouth Town and Plymouth City, from an educational perspective, that offered an awful lot more. So we thought, okay, in for a penny, in for a pound, let's park the ship for a moment and let's focus on what we could do with the Barbican. This was another quite interesting story. And again, I'm not going to go through all these, so please don't panic. Again, if you want a PDF so you can follow these up, then fine. If you try and get a consensus of what the Sutton Harbour looked like in 1620s, it's a nightmare. Chris Robinson's book has one version of the plan which people agree with and disagree with, and there are all these different plans. Some of them from the 1500s, some of them from the 1700s. Some of them focusing on what the area looked like in the time of the Civil War, when the Plymouth Castle had been completely demolished and the citadel had been built. So again, really, really tricky to get accurate information. Some of the books are out there that were well worth reading. I managed to get an original copy of The Streets of Old Plymouth, which has some lovely sketches in. You may have seen one right at the start of the presentation. And I think Chris Robinson's book has been very, very helpful, but there are lots and lots of others out there. But the main source of inspiration came from two physical models, one of which is still in the Guildhall. Now, I'm sure those of you who've been in the Guildhall will have seen this model as you go into the main entrance. I think it's now on the right in a big glass case. Plymouth during the 1620s. A lot of controversy over this. I mean, for example, particularly the castle, because there are those that believe the castle was not intact come 1620, and that in fact it had been ruined, it had been pulled to pieces, to start building the wall, a place like Friary Gate and all around Plymouth, as they moved towards the Civil War, and also a lot of the block work was taken to build the citadel. Also, a lot of controversy over what the actual harbour side looked like. A lot of people got it into their mind that it wasn't that dissimilar to what we have today. So it was like concrete, or whatever the equivalent was then, brick type, block type work with wooden stanchions and what have you, and quite neat and quite tidy. Didn't really believe that was the case. Now, here starts a really strange story, in that we heard that a good 20, 30 years ago, there was a foam model of the Mayflower, of the Barbican in the 1620s, that existed somewhere on the Barbican itself. Now, if any of you know, or if you've got relatives or any information you can send us on this particular model, I'd be really interested to hear it, because this story is incomplete. What we know is that it fell into disrepair. It was taken away from wherever it was shown, got no idea where this was shown, and it was put in storage in Robert Lenkevich's studios down on the Barbican. And there it lay for maybe 10 years or so, until this wonderful chap who has been really good, really helpful with us in this project, Scott Gleed, came along, was commissioned. I'm not sure if it was commissioned by the council or by Sutton Harbour authorities to take the model and to renovate it. And you can see here again another serious labour of love. Do you remember Michael Bentine's Potty Time? Because every time I mention Michael Bentine's Potty Time, I get looks of total disbelief. But then again, that's my age. For those of you who don't remember Michael Bentine's Potty Time, Michael Bentine used to have these sequences where he had these little dioramas, and underneath there were people with sticks and magnets, and they would move the characters around. So what Scott did is he took the old Mayflower model and he completely renovated it. 300 houses, fiber optic lighting. The ships themselves were animated using magnets underneath the water themselves. You can see St Andrew's Church. So he did an absolutely fabulous job. And then for some strange reason, it disappeared, and nobody knew where it was, how it was packed up, or where it went, until Indiana Jones-like we discovered that Sutton Harbour PLC had taken it out and dumped it in a warehouse on the now the disused Robert Airport. So, and it was quite a challenge to get Sutton Harbour to answer our calls, but we finally managed to get them to agree to take the model out of Roborough and to bring it down to their office at North Quay in the Barbican. And it was a hell of a mess. It was worse than when Scott had been commissioned to renovate it. The buildings had all been complete, with the exception of the castle. The buildings had been completely broken, chucked into boxes, poor attempts at putting them in bubble wrap. And we had hoped that we could have used some of this, maybe with a laser scanner, to give us some idea to help us build the Barbican in a very quick and relatively cheap way. Sadly, it was in such a state. It was really sad to see, because we did think, well, if it was in a reasonable state, why don't the council or Sutton Harbour put that in one of the shops in the town centre that's not being used? You make a feature of it. But hey, there you go. So we unfortunately drew a blank with that one. Very interesting story, and chasing all around the place to find out information about it, but we drew a blank. So we turned to some of the places on the web where we can buy medieval models, ships, barrels, cargo, all kinds of things, and see if we can take those and modify them to try and come up with something that would be acceptable as a 1620 model of the Barbican. So there have been 3 versions of this. Number 1, which was done for us by some Eastern Europeans, took the model that took the pictures of the model and took it literally. So they produced something that was very clean, full of bricks, no cobblestones, and the buildings themselves were incredibly clean and very orderly. We took that to show how we could move from that into something that was maybe a little bit more dirty and maybe a little bit more what it may have been like in the 1620s. We produced this, but even this was wrong, because it was still, there was too much, in our opinion, and the opinion of our historical advisor, Martin Reed from the University of Plymouth. It was still too, how can I describe it? It was still too industrial. It was still too orderly in terms of the building materials used to make the harbour. 2020, finally, we came to this. This is version 3. This is the current version, where we decided that most of the harbour side would have been woodwork, wooden walkways, wooden quay sides. There would be a lot of gullies taking waste from the medieval houses. I mean, let's face it, cholera was prevalent in Plymouth at the time, and we weren't that far away from the Great Plague, and so on and so forth. So it wouldn't have been particularly nice area. It would have been smelly. It would have been a lot of steam coming off the gullies, taking waste into Sutton Pool. Apparently on the day that Mayflower sailed, it was sunny, so we didn't make it too desperately bad. So there is sunshine coming over the horizon, and that's what it ended up looking like. And we also spent a little bit more time updating the ship. So for the first time ever, I'm going to try and take you along the virtual Barbican live, he said. So I've launched it. Yes. So I'm happy now. So here we have, I'm going to walk through this. It'll be a bit jerky, I apologize, so I'm using a mouse. But so for example, here's the speedwell. So we've got the speedwell up in North Quay. So Captain Jaspers will be down here somewhere. I use Captain Jaspers as one of my milestones, see. And then we have South Side, as it would have been before other buildings were built along here. So you're going down towards Plymouth Gin, Jacka's Bakery, probably something that resembles the old fish processing building. And we tried to make it look as messy as possible. So we've got the reflections in the window. We've got the mists. You can see the avatars, especially in the distance. The avatar movement is much better than we had before. Still not perfect, I admit, but certainly better than we had before. We've got New Street up there, which you can go up, down, and walk past the Elizabethan house, or a simple version of the Elizabethan house. Walk across the plank. You can see the Mayflower in the distance in the Catwater. There's one of the gullies coming down, taking the waste into Sutton Pool. So coming down now, and with special reference to Richard and Mark coming up here. We'll just go along for a bit. We've got the location of the Catwater Commissioner's office up there. This is roughly where the tourist office with the Mayflower Museum is at the moment. This is Castle Steps going up towards Castle Street, affectionately referred to as Damnation Alley, I'm told. Apparently there was something like 10 pubs, up to 10 pubs along here, and every pub was a brothel. So when you go up, so you don't really want to go up here, because there may be, you may get tempted into one of the many dens of iniquity. We can go through the Barbican gate. Now again, the castle, ideally we would have wanted the castle to be in its full glory, and then to be able to fade it into a much more ruined building. We've got the castle outhouse, gatehouse here, which still exists at the top of Lamhay Hill. So we've got little reminders of the present. Apparently this part of the Barbican or Sutton Pool was known for punishments for convicts. There were stocks there. There was also a ducking stool, we are reliably informed. And the ducking stool was used for punishing errant wives or nagging wives. And I know that's politically incorrect, but that's what history tells us. So whether this guy is actually waving at the pilgrims or he's waving his wife, we're not quite sure. And again, remember, you can use this on screen, or you can use this demonstration with a virtual reality headset. And so we come to the location of the actual Mayflower steps through the covered walkway. There's the fishing toll house. And again, a little bit of possible inaccuracy here. Let's get on this shallop. And when on the shallop, the electric motor cuts in and zooms out to the Mayflower, but the chain that you see here probably wasn't around in 1620. The chain was there under the watchful eye of Plymouth Castle, so that it could be raised to prevent the Spanish or to prevent the French from coming into the harbour and then making an assault on Breton side back in the 1500s and early 1600s. So the final bit is that this takes you out to the Mayflower itself. So this part is all automatic, because you don't want people falling off the boat into the water itself. So it brings you up to the Mayflower. and then it automatically. This is quite fun in a headset for anyone who gets nauseous or disorientated. If when you're going up the ladder, you do that, it's very, very disorientating. And we can get on board the ship. There's Edward, bless him. This guy's my favourite. This guy, I mean, the ship hasn't even started to sail yet, but he's obviously not going to be very well when the ship does actually move. Poor chap. There you go. And then we can go. And again, had we had time, spinless, the windlass spinnacle there, going. If we had time, we would have. You can go down into the lower deck, but it's empty. Sadly, it's one of the things that the team wants to build. Should we be able to take this forward? And you can go into the captain's cabin. The guy who built this got a bit carried away. So there's a bottle of Buckfast wine there. Of course, that didn't exist in the 1620s, and fresh Cornish squid ink, whatever the hell that is. But again, so that then enables you to explore some of the ship itself, and you can just like see the cooking facilities and the ship's crew compartment at the front. We've got a couple of the probably can't see here, but we've got a couple of the the swivel guns either side of the ship for close range combat. So after all that time and all that research, that is as far as we got. Let's say a real labour of love, but just doing things like building the 3D models, getting the photographs, getting people on board to try and help us. It's been a real challenge. It's certainly kept us going for quite some time. So just to conclude, we have shown the different evolutions of the ship over the years, and we were fortunate enough to be invited by BBC to take part in the 2017 Devon County show, where Sophie, Mum, who had just come to us having been to the cider tent, so she was a bit squiffy and very giggly when we were talking to her about what we were planning to do with the Mayflower. We've used it at the Devonport Heritage Centre, and I've got to say thank you to the Naval Heritage Centre, because they did give us a contribution, bless them. They did give a donation to this project and helping towards the building of the ship. So we have delivered a lot of our virtual reality maritime projects down to the Heritage Centre. So when the COVID situation improves, God willing, then hopefully we will take this down to the Devonport Heritage Centre as well. Saltash brownies, Saltash guides, they've all experienced the Mayflower as it's come along. And long may it continue. And I think what we're hoping is that we can do much more outreach with school kids to get them to experience not just the Mayflower, just to try to bring history alive, but to show them that, you know, from a career perspective, getting involved in this technology and not treating it as a computer game is really something that's very well worth considering. So we have a team. We've got Chris. Chris is Plymouthian, born and bred, currently lives in Canada. Rob is my lead programmer. That's Mike, who did all the avatars. And we've got the other members of the team, Chris, Vish, Faye, Martin Reed from the University of Plymouth. And I have to say a big thank you to Steve and Amy Kiffin, well, Steve is the CEO of Bluestone 360 over at Royal William Yard, who again, very kindly, with no funding at all, put together the virtual 1620 website, which you can see at 1620mayflower.co.uk. So a team of very dedicated volunteers who I believe have done us proud. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found that interesting. It's an incredible journey of 6 years. If you've got any questions or you want any information, or you can supply me with information that we've missed, I would be incredibly grateful. So thank you ever so much.
Bob, thank you for a wonderful talk. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm sure everyone was enthralled with that. And I'm sure there's plenty of questions. I'm not quite sure if Helen's got a hand up for a question or not. It's been raised for a while, whether that's just a errant mouse click. But are there any questions at all?
Ooh.
I think you've stunned us all, Bob.
That's okay.
It's absolutely
Colin,
fascinating.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Colin.
The actual Mayflower steps, I was told, are in by the ladies' toilet in the Admiral McBride. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, but I'm not allowed to say anything. They're not.
Oh, okay. Do you know where they are?
It's so nice. I'm just looking at one face on the assembled multitude who's smiling, and they can't be. I mean, if you follow the directions from the original Castle Street, Castle Steps, and then down to where we've got the Mayflower, they can't be under Admiral McBride. And in fact, if you talk, I don't know if you've been down to the Barbican and you've been approached by Ali, who sells some of the See the Ships Meet the Men boat trips down there, but he agrees, bless him, and he's been doing us proud with this project, as Ali. But I don't believe they're under the ladies' loo in the Admiral McBride.
It's a nice quiz question, isn't it?
Oh, we always get it. We always get it, though. I mean, everyone says, you know, it's wherever we go, the Admiral McBride always comes up. I mean, I don't want to ruin business for the Admiral McBride, but if you just look at the plans and the bits and pieces that we've got, it couldn't have come down that way. It's got the big wall at the back, and then you have the castle above it, or at least the northernmost turrets. It would have to follow castle steps down to the covered walkway and then down, so it would be on the other side of where the Mayflower steps currently are today.
Interesting.
Yes, Sarah, question. You'd have to unmute yourself, Sarah.
Me.
Okay, can
Yep.
you hear me? Thought I had already, but obviously not. Yeah, I was very interested in the work you're doing here and whether it will contribute to whatever's happening at the box in Plymouth. I don't know if you're probably aware of the museum and gallery there, and I just wondered, it would be wonderful if some of this could be there.
It probably won't. We did try to engage with the box on numerous occasions. It probably won't. I mean, they have obviously other priorities, like putting strange statues on West Ho. Well, don't get me going on that one, please.
All right, just thought I'd ask. Okay.
The box has. We did give the box some of the videos of our other maritime projects. Whether they used them or not, I just don't know. But we couldn't generate interest on this project for love nor money.
No.
It's very sad.
That is sad to hear.
But that's why it's going to go. That's why we're going to focus on giving this to the Devonport Naval Heritage Museum, because I mean the interest and support, albeit small, was incredibly welcome.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Mike, have you got a question there? Is that hand raised? Just emotion there. Okay, fair enough. Chalmers.
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate Bob and his team. I thought that was quite amazing. The amount of research. I mean, goodness knows how they do it. I really don't know, but it's absolutely fantastic, especially for the younger children, that this will be part of their, well, obviously their heritage, but and I'm sure that even my grandchildren will be very, very interested in how this was done. But I particularly like the walk along the Barbican, and he was quite right in a lot of research I've done on various things. It wasn't clean and tidy. It was absolutely filthy, and I think he's shown that, and the little seagulls tweeting in the background was excellent. So congratulations to you and your team. What an excellent project. Thank you.
Thank you, John. As I say, it was very much labour of love, but the guys were determined to see this through, and the fact that we got it down into the Canada Water Commissioner's office, courtesy of Richard and Mark, on the day that the Mayflower departed. So it was the same day that they poured Plymouth gin over the Mayflower autonomous ship. The fact that we were down there and it was was testament to a fantastic effort by the team, and we were really glad to be able to deliver something and not be adversely affected by this damn virus.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Any further questions? Just looking around, seeing none. In that case, I'll just sum up, Bob, with a vote of thanks. Thank you ever so much again for sparing your time this evening and giving us a fantastic talk. For me personally, I've actually had a little look on the Mayflower 1620 website. I've seen some of the interactive videos where I've had a little play around there. It's fascinating. So I really encourage everyone else to go to that website. Your presentation this evening just showed a bit of the Barbican there. Should I actually admit to it? But in the 1800s, I know that I've got distant family who lived in Castle Street, or Damnation Alley as it was. So I know the history of that place through family research. So it was fascinating to see what it could have looked like in historic times. So it's just left me to say, again, thank you ever so much. And if we could all show our appreciation in the usual way, I know it's on Zoom, but thank you ever so much, Bob.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Any questions? You got my email there. If there's anything you need, or bits and pieces, video, bits of software, just holler. More than happy to give it to people who can show it. You want to show it to their kids, grandkids. Yeah, just let me know. And
if you haven't made a note of Bob's email address, if you want to come through me, I can always pass you on to Bob. Yeah. So thank you all ever so much, everyone, for your time this evening, Bob. Thank you to all our guests here this evening. As I say, hopefully this will be the first of many similar sort of meetings between the combined area clubs. So thank you all, stay safe, and hopefully see you all again soon.